Do you guys know those people who it's like, no matter what you tell them, you never feel like it's like good enough? Or it's like never enough? Or if someone's like, hey, how are you? And you're like, good. And they just kind of like stare at you. And it's like you feel like you have to say more. Do you guys know? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Or am I the only person who's ever experienced this? How are you? I'm good. Just working, staying busy. I'm off school for the summer. And it's just like, well, what else? Well, what else? What else? Or maybe it's not that. Maybe you go to like a fast food restaurant, or maybe you call and you guys ever order Chinese takeout. Your parents ever make you order it? You order the takeout? Or you're at the line in McDonald's, you're in the drive-thru, and you're starting to place your order, and they don't even let you finish. And you're like, yeah, I'll have a double quarter pounder with cheese. What else? Well, I wanted that a meal. Okay, what else? Well, I wanted it with a Coke. What else? You guys know what I'm talking about? Anyone ever experienced this? And it's just like they're so quick to go, what else? What else? What's next? What's more? Or you tell someone, it's just not good enough. What else? What else? What else? Right? And I feel like sometimes we can be this way when it really comes to our faith. Where it's almost like, what's next? What else? What else? What you're telling me is not good enough. What else? What's next? What's more? What else can you give me? What else can you do? What else can happen? You see, in Exodus 33, it's really interesting. Verse 1, it says this. Then the Lord said to Moses, depart and go up from here, you and the people whom you've brought out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying to your descendants, I will give it. And I will send my angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, and the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in your midst, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. Rewind a little bit. In Exodus 32, this crazy story happens. Moses is up on the mountain. He's talking to God. He comes down, and they've literally built a golden cow to worship. Right? If you guys weren't here last week, that's essentially the story, is the people, literally, God has done so much for them, and then they're like, yeah, but we want to worship a golden cow that we built ourselves. It's really a stupid moment, right? So now God is actually angry with the people. He's upset with them. He's like, why would you do that? So here's what's going to happen. I'm still going to give you the promised land, which this is crazy, right? They don't deserve to go into the promised land. But God's like, it's the promised land. I promised it. I got to give it to you, because if I promise something and I'm God, I can't go back on my promises. When I say something, it's true. But then he says, but I'm going to send my angel to go before you, and I will not go with you. So there's still a lot of grace here in this moment. God's like, hey, you're still going to get the promised land. You're still going to get this amazing place. You're still going to get this awesome thing, but you won't get me. There's a lot of grace, because they all deserve. 3,000 people actually died in the last chapter because of what they did, and that's what they all deserved. But he says, I'm still going to give you this, but you just don't get me. I got a question for you guys. Do you love God for him or for his blessings? Do you love God for him or for his blessings? Let me ask you this. If God never did anything for you, would you still love him? And don't answer that. I want you to, and be honest with yourself, because this is a challenging question. Because there's times I'm like, yeah. And there's times I'm like, probably not. Why would I? But this is what they're faced with right now. They're faced with this in this moment where it's like, hey, you're still going to get an incredible blessing. You're going to get the promised land. Can you imagine if God's like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 billion. You just don't get me. Some of y'all are like, $1 billion? Heck yeah, I would take that, right? Chicka, chicka, yeah. Like, this is awesome. But this is an interesting question that we've all got to ask ourselves, because this is what they're faced with. Do you want I'm offering you all the blessings, but you don't get God. You don't get me. And this is an interesting situation because it's like if we enter into a relationship with the Lord just for what we'll get out of it, we're not going to have much of a relationship. There's this weird thing. You guys ever hear of a prenup? So clearly no. So there's this thing when people are about to get married, not everyone does this, most people shouldn't do this, but you do this thing called a prenup where basically you sign a contract that says if we ever get divorced, here's who gets what. So you're literally entering into a marriage going, all right, but if it doesn't work out, I get this, I'm protecting my assets, you protect your assets, you protect your stuff, you protect your money, but any money we acquire together, we're gonna like split up. And it's like you're going into this relationship really looking in the end to go, but how do I keep my stuff? And I feel like sometimes we do this with God. How do I enter into my relationship with the Lord, but still kind of give myself a way out? Still try to hold on to my stuff. Still keep these things that I like. Still keep these things inside. Still keep my side chick, whatever that is, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know what your other thing is that you want to keep. But we've got to ask ourselves this question. And then this happens, verse 4. When the people heard this bad news, they mourned. I love their reaction. And no one put on his ornaments. That's literally jewelry. This isn't meaning like they have Christmas trees set up and they're like, you know what, we're not putting our star on top of the tree. That's not, this means they didn't put their jewelry on. Verse 5, for the Lord said to Moses, say to the children of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. I could come up into your midst in one moment and consume you. Now, therefore, take off your ornaments that I may know what to do to you. So the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by Mount Horeb. So they get this really bad news, and they feel the right way. They're upset. They're mourning. They're not happy about this. Would you mourn the loss of God's presence? And before you answer that, would you even notice the loss of his presence? If God were to take his presence out of your life, is your relationship with him real enough and close enough that you would even notice if he was gone? Right, you ever have those friends that you're the only one who like works on the relationship? Anyone ever have that? Where it's like you text them, you call them, you're always checking on them, you're always seeing how they're doing, but they never reach out to you. They never text you, they never call you, they never see how they can help you. So I've had some friends like this, and it's funny, I'll test it out. I'll go, you know what, I'm not gonna text them. Let's see what happens. A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, a decade, 50 years goes by, right? And it's just like, whoa, wait, was I the only one working on this relationship? Right? If truly, where it's like, man, if I don't reach out to them, it's like they don't even notice that I'm gone. Right? But sometimes is our relationship with God like this? Would we mourn the loss of his presence, or would we even notice? Let me ask this, do we even acknowledge his presence? There's this guy who wrote this book called Practicing the Presence of God, and he made this whole goal, and this is crazy, and I would challenge you guys to do this. He said, I just want to acknowledge the presence of God once every minute. Just acknowledge. I'm not saying you have to sing a worship song every minute, right? You don't have to every time a minute passes. I'm not saying you say a prayer. I'm not saying every time a minute passes, you have to break out singing, right? I'm not saying every time it's like, bless the Lord, oh my soul. Like, I'm not saying you have to do that every minute. You'd look like a weirdo, okay? You're in the middle of class taking like a final exam, right? Then sings my soul, my soul. What are you doing? Sean told me to acknowledge God's presence, okay? But do you think about him? Just acknowledge his presence, right? Or is God in your life that kid in class that no one acknowledges? I feel like he can feel that way because we kind of do that, but then we turn to him in hard times, right? Do you even acknowledge his presence? The guy wrote this book and did this challenge, and he wrote about his journey and how just close he grew to God simply acknowledging his presence once a minute. I would challenge you guys to do it once an hour, 24 times a day. Acknowledge the presence of God. Now, you got to sleep, so 8 hours, so 16 times a day. I'm not telling you to set an alarm every hour. Oh, there's the alarm. God, there's your presence. Go back to sleep. You don't have to do that. But this is what they're dealing with now. They're like, no, we don't want to lose his presence. We don't want to lose his presence. God, well, how are you doing this to us? Verse 7. Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of meeting. And it came to pass that everyone who sought the Lord went out to the tabernacle of meeting, which was outside the camp. So what happens? Now Moses is like, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set up this place. The tabernacle's not built yet, but I'm going to pitch this tent, and in it's going to be the presence of God, and this is where we can seek after him. But here's what I love. If you want to speak to God at this time, you got to be super intentional about it. Because you literally have to leave, basically, the city. You have to leave the camp. You have to go outside the camp to where Moses put this tent. How intentional are you about seeking God? Because, guys, our relationship with Jesus shouldn't be convenient. And I think that's often what we want. We want convenience. We want it easy. We want it quick. But pursuing a very real relationship with someone isn't convenient. One day when you guys grow up and you're getting ready to get married, and you're in that place where you're looking for your husband, you're looking for your wife, and you're pursuing that person, can I tell you guys, that sort of relationship isn't convenient. Right? I was single for years, for a very long time. Danielle could tell you guys, I was like the single guy, right? Everyone's like, Sean's never going to get married. Prove the haters wrong, right? They're like, he's just going to be single forever. And every time I would do something stupid, that's why he's single, right? Well, you know what? I've been married almost 7 years, and I still do stupid stuff. So, but what happened is when I started to pursue this relationship, the convenience of my single life was gone. I didn't have all my own free time because I brought someone else into my life. And then as we dated, as we got engaged, and then as we got married, my life was not my life anymore. So everything I do, I don't do anything without talking to my wife first. And it's not that I need permission, and it's not that she needs permission to do stuff from me, but it's because we care about each other so much and we respect each other so much that I go, hey, babe, is it cool if I go for a run? Yeah, something as simple as that. If I go, if I need 15 minutes to go on a 3-mile run, I'm just kidding, I don't run that fast. Just want you guys to hear that and be like, wow, he's like the Quicksilver. He's like a Blur, the Flash. But I go to her and go, hey, babe, is it cool if I go for a run? And she says yes almost 90% of the time because she wants me to do what I like to do. But the convenience of my single life is gone. And when we enter into a relationship with Jesus, the convenience of our single life outside of a relationship with God is gone. And you've got to purposely pursue that relationship. And here's the thing, convenience isn't even always good. You know what the worst thing about Amazon is? Anyone here have Amazon Prime? Your family has it? You know what the worst thing about Amazon Prime is I wouldn't buy half that stuff if I was in the store. Right? Convenience seems like a good thing, but here's how I am with buying stuff. When I load up stuff in the cart, I'll carry it around the store, and when I get to the checkout, I throw out 5 of the things. I'm like, I'm not going to buy them. But on Amazon, it's just like, whoa, same-day delivery. Oh my gosh, I'm going to buy this. Yes, of course I need this. Who doesn't need this? This is the coolest thing in the world. What is it? Oh, well, you know what it is. Well, I'm trying to think of a stupid item that I would buy on Amazon just randomly. Oh, it's a TV remote cleaner. Yeah, I bought it. It was on Amazon. Same-day delivery, babe. Woo! It's like, if I were in Target and I wouldn't buy it. I have time to think about it. Convenience isn't always good. We want convenient, but convenience can get us in trouble. So people actually had to leave the camp. They had to leave the camp to worship the Lord, to follow God, to talk to God. To follow Jesus, you have to leave blank. I don't know what that is for you guys. I don't know what that thing is, but if you want a real, true relationship with the Lord, what is that? Because he tells us to deny ourselves, to pick up our cross, to follow him. And it's not convenient, but there's things you're going to have to leave behind. And I know this is like a heavier subject. I know we're like, whoa, this is pretty serious tonight. What's going on? But it's just, this is the reality. They had to leave the camp to worship God, to follow Jesus. There's things. And I'm not going to throw out examples because you know what that is. If I'm saying that and I'm putting that up on the screen, something popped in your head. Don't try to convince yourself that's not what it is. If that popped in your head, that's what it is. So don't be like, no, there's no, oh God, when he said to follow Jesus, you have to leave, and Reggie popped in my head. There's no way it's Reggie. He's so cute. There's no way. Like, no, if Reggie popped in your head, young lady, Reggie's what you got to leave, okay? Boys, if Reggie, we'll talk, all right? No. If there was a friend, if there was a girl, if there was a game, if there was a, like whatever, it popped in your head, I'm pretty sure that's the thing that you got to leave behind. Verse 8. Sounds like a lot. We haven't even talked about the good stuff left. This is just pursuing God. So we're all like, what else? What else? I'm not done. All right, verse 8. So it was, whenever Moses went out to the tabernacle, that all the people rose, and each man stood at his tent door and watched Moses until he had gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass, when Moses entered the tabernacle, that the pillar of cloud descended, that's literally the presence of God, and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord talked to Moses. All the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose and worshiped, each man in his tent door. So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. And he would return to the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. So what happens? Moses starts to set this example. And this is what we're all called to do as Christians. We're called to set this example. What happens? Moses goes and worships. And what happens? It says the people saw it. It says that the people rose, that each person stood at their tent door and watched. And it says when Moses began to worship, that all the people rose and worshiped. Moses led by example. I love people who walk the walk. Right? Do you know people who talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk? You ever see that? How many of y'all go to like public school? I went to public school my whole life. How many of you have seen fights in your public school? Just curious. Like you've seen, you know what happened all the time? I grew up, I went to Sawgrass Middle, and here was the typical fight. People are yelling back and forth, you're a loser, your mom, you stink, I hate you, I'll whoop you, I'll beat you up. And then they're all like they're saying all this stuff. But 90%, and please, I'm not saying people should walk the walk when it comes to fighting, but 90% of the time, they're like this, with their like hands behind them, like kind of walking away from it. I'll stick you, bro. I'll stick you, bro. I'll stick you, bro. And it's like, all they're doing is talking, and they don't do anything. But here's the thing. I know so many Christians that do the same stinking thing. They talk about Jesus all the time. They talk about how good it is and how Christians should be. And they talk about politics. And, oh, we're not one nation under God anymore. There's no way. But then you look on at their life and they curse and they swear and they do all this stuff where it's like, wait, you talk like you're a Christian, but your life doesn't look like it. But Moses, what does he do? He goes and he worships and he drew near to God. And what happened when others saw him, there was something about his relationship with the Lord that made others want what he had. And I would hope that each and every one of you, that you would pursue God so passionately that people look on at you and know there's something different, that they want what you have. Guys, one of the greatest compliments I've ever received is when a person came up to me and said, I don't know what it is about you, but there's just something different, and I want it. And in return, I got to tell this person, here's what's different about me. I know this guy named Jesus. And I know this guy that I follow that gives me joy, that gives me peace, that's forgiven me of my sins. I know when I die that I'm going to heaven. I didn't sit and preach to the person. I didn't sit and invite them to church. It's literally someone approached me and said, I don't know what it is about you, true story, but there's something different. The world should look on at you and want what you have. And I'm not talking about your shoes or your clothes or your video games, but I'm talking about your relationship with Jesus, that they should look on and be like, what is different? I want that. The people looked on at Moses
and they wanted to worship. Does your faith make others want what you have? Seriously, ask yourself that. Does your faith make others want what you have? And if it doesn't, there's an issue. How'd you guys get closer together? Come to your seat. Fill in your seat. Yeah, come on over. Right? Does your faith want, because listen, I'm going to say this. If you're a boring Christian, you're probably not doing it right. So if you know boring Christians, you're like, they're probably not. If you read about the Christians in the Bible, their life was anything but boring, right? Christians' lives should be exciting, should be a little bit crazy, should be more joy. There's probably more tribulation. There's more of literally good and bad. But people will look on, and when you're in the middle of a trial and they go, how are you so at peace? How did you go through something like that and you're okay? I wish I could have what you have right now because it's such a wreck, right? Does your faith make others want what you have? And it says Moses spoke to the Lord face to face like a man speaks to his friend. And this doesn't mean face to face, like they looked at each other. Because the Bible tells us no one can see the face of God, but it means they had a deep, real conversation. Throughout the Old Testament, when God would speak to prophets, it was usually through dreams and visions, but he's actually having a real conversation with Moses. We're almost done. Verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. Verse 13, now therefore I pray, if I found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. And he said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Verse 15, then he said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. For how then will it be known that your people and I have found grace in your sight, except you go with us? So we shall be separate, your people and I, from all the people who are upon the face of the earth. So the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you've spoken, for you found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. This is where everything stands for us. He said it a couple times. You found grace in my sight. We have found grace in his sight. Guys, our whole relationship with Jesus, it's this thing called grace, right? It's this thing, literally. Do you guys know what grace is? Anyone know what grace is besides a girl's name? Right? What's grace? What's grace? Yeah. You had your hand up, right? You're close. So not quite a second chance. I've heard it said this, like an acronym, God's riches at Christ's expense. GRACE, God's riches at Christ's expense. But here's what grace is. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. So you're speeding in your car, cop pulls you over and says, I'm not going to give you a ticket. That's mercy. Here's what grace is. Hey, I'm not going to give you a ticket, and here's a Reese's peanut butter cup. Grace is getting something you don't deserve. It's getting something you don't deserve. I've shared this before, but back in the day when me and my older brother, when one of us would have a birthday, our grandparents would always give the birthday boy a good gift. But they would always give the other one of us a small gift. And it's like, it's not even my birthday. That's like grace. I'm getting something I don't deserve. And this is where our whole relationship with Jesus is. We're getting something. Sometimes we're like, what else? God, my life's hard. Why don't you give me better things? Why don't you give me blessings? Your whole relationship with him is based on this thing called grace. He gave you what you don't deserve, forgiveness of your sins. He died on the cross for you. And God tells him, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. I love what Matthew 11:28-30 says. It says, come to me all you, we should have that up on the screen there. Come to me all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Guys, the presence of God means rest. We get grace. When we lose his presence, we lose rest, but with him, we get rest. Earlier, he's telling the people they're stiff-necked. This is like referencing like an animal, that when you're trying to turn the animal and its head won't go the way you're telling it to, they would call it a stiff-necked animal. He's like, guys, I'm trying to point you in the right direction. I'm telling you what to do. You're stiff-necked. But now he's saying, take my yoke upon you. He's saying, listen, we're going to attach ourselves to each other. And I'm going to lead you, and I'm going to guide you, and I'm going to direct you, and I'm going to bring you where you need to go, and I'm going to show you what you need to do. I'm going to give you rest. This is what my presence will give you. And in verse 15, Moses says, if your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. Do you feel this way? We touched on this earlier. Do you love God for him or just his blessings? But straight up, do you feel this way, that anything's worth anything without his presence? You guys ever leave home without your phone? Isn't it the worst? You know, I don't know how many of you guys carry wallets, but you leave home without your wallet. I do it now a lot more than I used to because of Apple Pay, and it's made it really easy, but I still need my driver's license, so that's trouble. I don't leave home without my keys because I couldn't start my car, so that's hard. But I've left them in the house, and I've had to go get them. That stinks. I never leave home without my shoes. Never leave home without, your AirPods. Fill in the blank. But I would seriously ask you, how many times do you leave home without Jesus? It's funny. We're like, oh my gosh, Mom, turn around! Ah! What happened, dear? Did someone die? No, I left my phone at home! Ah! And it's like, yet y'all leave, and like Jesus is like sitting in your room twiddling his thumbs. Y'all are like, huh. Right? You go to that party, you go to that friend's house, you go, and it's like, yeah, Jesus, just go in this pocket. I can't let them see you. I'm just going to hide you there, Jesus. Right? They're like, God, without your presence, we don't want it. Without your presence, we don't want it. And Moses literally says, like, hey, will it be known? Like, for the people watching, like, I want the people watching to know about you. And it's like, guys, you should be proud of your faith. I feel like there's this weird meekness where Christians are, like, scared to offend people. So we, like, almost shy away from our beliefs and our faith. But we should be proud. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying to be prideful, because that's a sin. But we should be excited to be Christians. And we should tell people about it. Because this is what our faith means. You sit and go, what else, what else, what else? Our faith means grace. Our faith means rest. Our faith means forgiveness. Our faith means the promised land. Verse 18, and he said, this is Moses, please show me your glory. God's like, hey, listen, I told you I wasn't going to go with you to the promised land, but I'm going to go now. Isn't it crazy that Moses asked for something else? You ever ask for something and you're like, darn, I should have asked for more, right? I sell stuff on OfferUp sometimes, and I'll list something like $20, and someone will be like, hey, I'll buy your vacuum for $20. And I'm like, dang, it was that easy? I should have done for 30, right? But I can't go to them and be like, hey, would you do 30? Because it was listed at 20. And I find myself going, Or sometimes you'll bid like back and forth. I list something for $50. They're like, would you take 25? And I'm like, no, I'd take 35, deal. And I'm like, I should have asked for 40. Like, I wish I would have asked for more, right? Your parents ask you to do something. They're like, hey, I'll pay you for it. And then you finish. And they're like, what's a fair amount? And you're like, I don't want to ask for too much. And they're like, give me $50. Okay, I should have asked for 100. They might have done it, right? Like, Moses is like, he's asked God, come with us. God says yes. You'd think he'd be satisfied, but he knows there's more. He knows there's more, so he says, God, show me your glory. We should always want more of God. I mean this in the nicest of ways, and I hope it doesn't sound like terrible, but God is literally like an all-you-can-eat buffet and I mean it in the sense of like there's always more. And there's always more. And you think you've eaten until you can't eat anymore. But with him, there's more, and there's more, and there's more. It's funny. I'm teaching right now Downstairs, Warsh is teaching in HSM, and in the sanctuary, Stefan Tavigian is teaching. We're all teaching Exodus 33, and I guarantee you all of our teachings are very different. Why? Because there's always more to God's word. And he speaks to us in different ways, and he says different things. There's always more, and we should seek that. We should want that. We should desire that. So he says, show me your glory. Verse 19, then he said, I will make my goodness. Look at that. Hey, God, show me your glory. Well, what's his glory? I will make my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious. I'll have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live. The Lord said, here is a place by me, and you shall stand on the rock. So it shall be while my glory, that's what he asked for, show me your glory, while my glory passes by, that I'll put you in the cleft of the rock, and I'll cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I'll take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. It's funny. He doesn't get the full glimpse. He doesn't get the full glimpse. He gets a small picture of it. And guys, here on earth, we're never going to get the full glimpse of God's glory. You guys good? Y'all interrupted me like 3 or 4 times already. I shouldn't have to keep stopping service. Now you guys aren't even looking? Can I just have y'all separate? Each of you in a different row? Each of you in a different row. Not like that. Different rows. Like move from each other. We'll stall as long as we need to. This is, keep moving, guys. Ask people in this room. I'll call your parents. I'll meet up with them at the playground. People in this room who know that. Can I get an amen? It's always a fun phone call. Yeah, when you guys check in and all their info's in there, and it's really fun. So he doesn't get a full picture of his glory. He literally gets like the back side of it. He's like, you got to cover, I'll cover you with my hands. You won't be able to fully see it. My face you won't see. Paul said this in 1 Corinthians 13:12. Worship team, you guys can come up. But he says, for now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, just as I also am known. Guys, we don't get to see all of his glory right now. We don't even get to experience all of his glory right now. But I can promise you this. If you're in here today and you're a Christian and you're pursuing a relationship with Jesus and you're like, what else? What else? What else? I can promise you this. There's more. Because here's the thing. It talks about we see in a mirror. You know what the thing about a mirror is? What you're seeing isn't what it is. Isn't it weird you'll never actually see your own face? You'll only see it through a mirror. But a mirror is not the full picture. If I held up a mirror, we'll pretend like my phone's a mirror, and I'm like, look at this in the mirror. What you're looking at is a reflection. It's not the real thing. It's like a shadow. A shadow is not the object. A shadow is what the object creates. And what Paul is saying right here is, hey, right now, we don't get the full glimpse. We don't get the full picture. But the beauty we see today, when you go to the Grand Canyon and you look at that beauty and you see that glory, knowing that there's a creator up there that made that, and knowing we'll get to spend eternity with him, the Grand Canyon's a glimpse of the glory. When you're standing on the mountaintop and you're looking down and you're seeing the trees and the forest, or you go and you're watching Niagara Falls and you see all these things in nature, it's a glimpse. When you see a blind person receive sight, when you see a miracle like that take place, that's a glimpse of the glory, but it's not all of it. Because what I'm seeing right now is a mirror. And it's so funny. As we get ready to worship, one day we're going to see all of it. And we do these things. We put these lights up here, put these LED strips. We got cool backgrounds. Why? Because we're trying to imitate something. We have a haze machine right there that's broken. Creates smoke. It makes our lights look cooler. But it's like, in reality, that's just a cheap imitation.
The lights look cool, the haze looks cool. It creates this really cool movement in the room and makes everything cool and all these vibes, but all that is, that's just vibes, that's cheap imitations. But one day, for eternity, we'll see the real thing. So that's my prayer, that's my heart, that you guys, as we say, what else? I promise you this, he has exceedingly abundantly for you, more than you could ever hope, dream, or imagine. But you've got to pursue that. And it starts with that question, or that statement Moses made. He said, show us your glory. Show me your glory. And that's my prayer as we enter this time of worship. I'm going to ask that you guys stand, and we're just going to ask him to show us his glory. And we're going to see what he does in here tonight. Let's pray. And as I'm praying, I'm just going to ask that you ask that question. God, show me your glory.